Hello and welcome to another video. Today we will have a bit of a different approach to a learning experience where we will have a more relaxed talk about jungle, I suppose. So if we get started with that, we have a few different ideas on how you can really win on jungle, where there are kind of two, let's say, schools of thought that people have, right? There are people who believe that you need to be proactive, reactive, like do these things and those things, like gank, like invade, whatever, right? And you need to impact the map, impact the game, whatever, and take matters into your own hands, right? So there are people who approach the game in that way, while there are also people who approach the game in a slightly different way, where they try to be as consistent as possible. They try to find a way they can play every game where they can have a certain amount of impact on the game, which should be positive in every single match they play. What is really the difference here, though? So, one is kind of like what I've talked about before, where you're playing for win rate, and one is where you're playing for improvement, as I talked before, but it's not really so cut and simple. So, for example, if you are something like a Cortis player or a Nidalee player or something, right? Your level 1 tends to be pretty decent. So with your level 1 being pretty decent, it's going to benefit you a pretty high amount if you're actually willing to use that. At the same time, if you're something like an Evelyn player, your level 1 is not going to be that amazing, so it's not going to benefit you as much if you're really looking to use that. Though, if you have laners who are really strong, like Olaf, Fiora, whatever, right, that still can really benefit you, and it can still be a pretty good tool in your kit that could increase your chances of winning by a lot. At the same time, though, these plays which are more, let's say, proactive, right? These plays which are more getting in the enemy's face tend to have a higher win rate as you go lower elo, as they will allow you to make a bigger difference with the enemy team, right? Like, they will allow you to skill check the enemy team more, they will allow you to really push a lead and whatever else. They do tend to come with more risk, though. So, for example, what I've talked about on Cortis is the idea of low 1 invading, where maybe you go like this, you go 130 low 1 invade here. If your top side is stronger, though they don't really need to necessarily be stronger, they just need to be like kind of useful, because as Cortis you are so strong level 1 that you do kind of make up for their weakness most of the time, as long as you hit your Qs or something like that. So if you go for something like this and you invade at 130, the enemy's either going to be here or they're not, obviously, right? If they are not here and they're not actually responding by taking your jungle somewhere, then more often than not, you're going to end up taking some part of their red quadrant into somehow transitioning into your red side. Maybe you're going to do this, maybe you're going to then do this, maybe you're going to do this, then you're going to like gank something, you know, then do like something here. Either way, though, you're going to be able to do some kind of more proactive feeling plays, right? In this kind of a playstyle, you're going to feel like you have a lot more impact in the game, and you're also going to feel like you ended the game a lot quicker. Though these things do tend to become a lot weaker as you go higher, because they don't really become weaker themselves, but people know how to react to them. Because, for example, if I see a card as an enemy team, right? First of all, I know he can level 1 invade, so I need to like cover, I need to like ward maybe, you know. Secondly, I'm going to have to really protect myself against a level 1 invade. Thirdly, I don't really want to show where I am. Fourth, I don't want to start on red buff when he starts on blue buff, because this is a very common team where Cortis will full clear from blue buff all the way down. He will end, let's say, like 250 or something, and he will invade my blue buff, which will be a pretty bad thing for me if I'm full clearing. Though I can't start my red buff as long as I'm not doing a full clear same as him. as this will result in me getting invaded and maybe potentially having quite big issues. As even if he doesn't take your blue buff, if he doesn't kill you, he doesn't do anything, right? He still will delay your clear. If he delays your clear, he has already done all of his camps, which means his camps are just like cycling up. They are respawning. He doesn't really have anywhere to be or anything to do. He has some time to waste until the scuttle spawn, and he's going to kind of have a, let's say, priority in moving to the scuttle, as he is going to be zoning you off from this part of the map. He might also take some of your HP or whatever. He's also going to be really healthy. So he is gonna move here, do this scuttle, maybe do this scuttle, and if you lose double scuttle like this, into him also getting all of these camps again, it can be a pretty big economy difference that he creates. And these kinds of things can be quite problematic for you, right? So this is kind of showcasing the two ideas though, as here we had the invade thing, right? Where you need to ward against that, but at the same time, if someone is actually playing consistent, they still have some kind of way to get ahead, right? On a lot of champions, where they have plays after their full clear, which will always exist in a way, right? Which you also have to counter. So a really simple example here was Cortus, right? Because he full clears this, and then he, against any pretty much champion in the game, will usually be faster. There are some champions which will finish this blue side before he comes here, but they are pretty rare. And for the most part, when I'm really thinking of this, I'm thinking of some average champion or like Evelyn or something. And Evelyn is pretty average and clear, honestly, with the way that things have been going recently. Or well, the last few years. So then these ideas, right? We have these invades, which the lower elo you go, the more likely they are to work. We have these, this is also a sort of an invade, right? The lower elo you go, basically, the slower the enemy's clear is, the less they're really like protecting, the less they're aware, and so on. And so either way that you work, you're going to be able to win more games, but the stronger your play is, the more it's usually going to win. Though a lot of the strongest plays can be quite volatile, and these volatile plays are oftentimes made consistent through your own skill of whatever form that may be, right? So it can be like macro skill, it can be like micro skill, whatever. You can be really good mechanically, you can have really good awareness, whatever else, right? But either way, it's going to be kind of like that. So what do we really have right now in the jungle, right? In the jungle right now, we have these ideas where, as I said, you can level 1 invade. So you can do this stuff. Usually it can give you some kind of a lead, but as you reach master and above, it should stop really giving you such big leads. Even in master, it should give you some leads, but above master, it really shouldn't give you too much of a lead unless it's just a draft gap. But even then, it shouldn't end the game. But in, let's say, low master and below, these kinds of things can be basically game ending, because if the enemy doesn't expect you to, for example, start in their camps, right, whatever else may be, you can do their whole quadrant, and then maybe you can like pull off a gank, and then maybe you can take like more stuff, and you basically just completely out impacted the enemy jungle, because you not only took all of their camps, you not only have a farm advantage, you also have a ganking advantage, as you have ganked some lane, and you also get to control where the enemy jungler can go, as you're really cutting them off from this side of the map. They can't really go into bot lane unless they really sacrifice all of their farm, and even then you should have much better vision than them on the bot side, so it's really hard for them to really do anything there. These kinds of things though are falling off after that, and it gets really taken over by stuff like full clears, right? So full clears are a pretty consistent way to play, as you're going to be playing in a pretty similar fashion in every game. There are two types of full clear ideas though. There are the standard ideas where you go into a buff, and then you will clear all of your jungle. Usually you will though do a small, let's say, a small little bonus trick here where you don't really do the second buff before the last camp. So maybe you do like the Gromp before the blue. Maybe you do the Krugs before the red, right? And you try to be pretty efficient to doing that. Though you don't really, you do the Gromp before blue pretty much always on most champs, but the Krugs before red, it can be a bit iffy if you do it or not. Because, for example, as I mentioned with Cortis, right? You can have this whole clear done, right? And you can then go invade or something. While if you do Krugs and then red, you're going to take a bit longer, and also your most optimal path at that point is going to be something like this or that, right? And these paths are going to be taking you to the enemy side quite a bit later, and also it's a bit more likely to be warded, as this is a pretty natural way to walk then into the river. Alright, so if we keep that in mind, we then also have these paths where people start on raptors or wolves, right? These paths are pretty interesting, as you will go for something like this, and then either you gank, or let's say that we're full clearing, right? You might do something like this, where you skip both of the buffs in favor of doing the minor camps first. Or you might do the raptors into Krugs, into red, into wolves, Gromp, blue, right? Either way, you're probably skipping both of the buffs initially into doing the minor camps. The idea here really is to get your minor camps to respawn faster, as your minor camps are your main source of income, and will accelerate you faster towards level 6. So because you do these camps first, right, that means that the minor camp will respawn at like 4 minutes, right, instead of like, let's say 4:20. And this basically means that as you cycle it at 4 minutes again, you will then have it again up at, say, like 6:10 or something, instead of having it up at 4:20 and then having it up at the next time at, say, like, I don't know, 6:30, right? This can be a small advantage, as you have something like 20 seconds where it'll be a bit faster. Not the biggest thing, not the smallest thing. Can be pretty chill. Also, for a lot of champions, it can be pretty healthy or pretty quick. You start with raptors, for example, champs like Kane or whatever, or Belvet or something. But there are some major issues with this, which you run into as you go higher elo, as I'll try to demonstrate just with a raptor start clear. So if you start raptors, you go raptors, Krugs, red, wolves, blue. Sorry. You go raptors, Krugs, red, wolves, Gromp, blue, right? Then you do whatever you do. I don't know, maybe you like try to do something. Maybe you do a scuttle. And then let's say that maybe you go here and you try to do these raptors again. Or you do the scuttle, you base, and then you go to these raptors again, right? Either way, the issue is you're not really going to be able to be level 5 yet. If you go for a base, it's quite likely that you won't really make it right on spawn. I mean, you might make it right on spawn, but usually when you do something like this, you're kind of looking for some kind of a play, right? Because the idea here is that you're going to do these camps, right? You're going to go here, maybe like look for a gank or something, look for the scuttle, and then you're going to look for another clear both of these camps, and then you're looking to base, right? So this is really your main idea with this, as this gives you more gold on your first base, and it also should give you a pretty good amount of XP. But as the enemy jungler, if I did a standard full clear, right, so whatever side that may be. I got level 4. I should finish my clear faster than you, because, well, this might be quite efficient in terms of your camp respawns. You are running around quite a bit, right? So you're running here, then you're running back here, then you're running all the way here, you're running like this, you're running like this, right? And you're running like this again, so you are doing quite a bit of running. I should then also be able to make some kind of a play happen, or whatever, and I should be able to base. And when I do all of that, right, I might end up coming to your Raptors, right? And if I come to your Raptors, I'm going to, as an AD jungler, have something like double longsword. This can be quite problematic for you, though, as you aren't level 5, and you probably didn't base. And with that, you can see that you're not really going to be able to fight me, unless your champion is much stronger than mine early. In which case, well, the question is, why are you choosing such an AFK farming clear path? Which is pretty interesting, right? But even then, if your champion is a lot stronger, it's still quite unlikely for you to be able to fight against a double longsword with no items, with no level advantage. So, can be quite problematic because of that, as if I take your second spawn Raptors, then I am going to be quite ahead. So, this can be a pretty major issue with these types of clears. Though technically, if you do clear this stuff and then you do recall, it can be okay, but the problem is you don't have time for a play and then to recall and to make it like on time for the spawn of the second Raptors. Because if you make it later than the second Raptor spawn, I might have recalled and ran straight here and already gotten them, which can be quite problematic. So then, there are quite a few ways that you can play, right? As we have figured out. So you can play for these invades from level 1. You can play for something like red into enemy blue invade, right? So for example, you have these paths like red, blue, grump, right? You can do like red raptors, grump, and then something, right? Like either gank or keep fighting or something. You can look for something like raptors into enemy blue. You can like invade them here. Usually if they do a leashless blue start, they will end up on grump here with lower HP and also no smite, which means that you can pretty freely outsmite them if you have a fast raptor start. You can maybe outsmite their grump and you can likely kill them on some champions, say like Kayn, Bel'Veth, and so on. Could use this. Some champions, as there are quite a few champions now that easily clear raptors, like Kayn, Bel'Veth, as I mentioned, Lilia, for example, as well, and so on. Can also start on enemy raptors and then try to steal their red or something, or just take this, let's say, advantage and go into their camps or go gank or something. Can also happen. At the same time, there are also these 3 camp clears. So, for example, red, or rather, Raptors red Krugs into a bot lane gank attempt or invade. You do quite want to do this though. If you actually opt into one of these clears, you do quite want to look for a bot lane or invade type of play, as otherwise you will be running from here all the way to the top side, which is okay. Some people do this, even high elo players do this, but it's not the most efficient way to play on most champions, which have a pretty efficient clear. If you're pretty good at fighting, it can work, and if you have a reason why you want to do this, sure, especially if your bot lane has no prio and it's not gankable, like maybe they die even or something, and then maybe you're forced to really go like this. At the same time, there can also be something like 3 camp clears into basing, buying a longsword or a dark seal or something, into going top side or going bot side or whatever else there may be, right? But the question is always just, how can I make this work, right? What is the requirement for me to make this work? And the requirements to make these things work are usually going to be pretty different, right? So the requirement to make something like a heavily aggressive level 1 invading, level 2, 3 invading playstyle into a working, let's say, machine, we're going to need a pretty decently strong early game champion. We're going to need a pretty decent understanding of which laners are strong or weak in the early game. We're going to need to be able to shot call quite well. So for example, we need to be able to use pings and chat and so on in order to direct our team towards what we need to do and what we need them to do. As if we don't know how to really manage our teammates in that way, right, and how to react to how they react to our management, then we will oftentimes run into situations where either our teammates don't do what we want and we die or something, or we've learned into a situation where they just are not aware of what we really want and so on. Both can be quite problematic. So, yeah. Then, if we're going for something like a level 3 ganking playstyle, level 3 invading playstyle, so say like something like a red side quadrant into gank or invade or something, right? In this case, we're going to need a pretty good understanding of, firstly, when lanes are gankable, secondly, when junglers are vulnerable and how they're vulnerable. So, is it HP? Is it because the champion doesn't do much? Is it because the champion uses all of their cooldowns on the clear and their cooldowns are pretty long? Is it because the champion's clear is kind of slow? Is it because these lanes kind of fist fight? Or what is it, right? So what is the reason that this can work? We also have the full clearing playstyle, right? Where we have the idea of we clear our whole jungle and then we try to do some things. For example, we try to scuttle, we try to look for plays, we try to look for plays here or vision or something. We try to look for enemy second spawn camps. We try to look for base into like maybe go to the other side of the map. We try to maybe look for whatever else, right? So whatever follow-up there is. So this might already give away hopefully what you're going to need as a skill set in order to make that kind of playstyle work. It's going to be a decent amount of let's say practice, where you're going to kind of like a flowchart. I wouldn't really say memorize, but you could even call it memorize. You're going to really try to learn how the variations play out. So if I do this full clear against these types of champions, then I'm going to end up here at this time, and I'm going to be able to do stuff like this, and it's going to work out like this. Okay. Then you go next game, and next game, and next game, and next game, and as you play a decent amount of games, you're going to end up in a position where you're able to kind of call how the game is supposed to play out, right? So these playstyles have a different, let's say, win ratio usually though. By default, something like a full clear playstyle is really aiming towards a 70% win rate or something. Right? Ogren has this kind of win rate as well. And it really is aiming towards something like this, but it can go quite a bit higher. And you might see, or well, you will see a lot of full clear players have a higher win rate, right? So for example, these Evelyn players, these Hecarim players, so on, right? You can see them with 90% win rate. And why is that? Even though I say that it's really aiming towards the 70%. Well, a lot of the time though, these players don't really follow a full clear playstyle the whole game. At some point, they're going to get the lead, and maybe they're going to start playing invading. Maybe they're going to start playing, I don't know, like a selfish carry playstyle. Maybe they're going to start playing whatever else, right? By default, a full clear playstyle is not really a selfish carry playstyle, but rather it's a consistent playstyle. What you're looking to do is to make sure that your champion strength is pretty consistent within games, and your timings are pretty consistent as well. As with other playstyles, your timings and champion strength can vary quite a bit depending on what has happened already. And that can start as early as L1. Your impact on the lane is also going to be quite a bit different. So then we have those playstyles where you're going for like a level 3 gank or something, right? Those can be like, let's say 10-20% higher win rate. And really, when you're looking for something like a level 1 invading playstyle or something, right? When you're trying to take over the game from level 1, you're really going for winning every game, right? So like 95 to 100% win rate. But as I said, right, these things can have a lot more variance. And as I have a lot more variance, that's also why you can win more games, but that's also why you can lose more games. So yeah, pick your poison. At the same time, some things are going to be a lot better for improving than others. So I tell people to full clear quite a lot when they're trying to improve. And why would that be, right? I mean, if you really think about it, it's kind of obvious, right? I said that full clearing, for that, what you're required to really have for it to succeed is a learning flowcharts type of mentality, right? Where you're learning the follow-ups to variations and then applying them. And also you're keeping some basic rules. So for example, on the Evelyn specific scenario, right? How do I tell people to play Evelyn? Full clear. Look for like gank top, gank mid, look for invade or something if you can, or fight the enemy jungler or something if it's level 3 or something. Cool. Take the scuttle, base, repeat. Okay, objective. Level 6. We want that level 6. What do we want to do with a level 6? If we are 6 versus 5, right? So we have level 6, enemy jungler has level 5. We are, most of the time, looking for an invade on their buff. So let's say they started red, we're going straight to their red and invading them a lot of the time. Can also be a gank instead, but a lot of the time invading can be quite lucrative with villain. If they're also level 6, maybe we cannot do that and maybe we focus more on the ganks. A lot of it is also lane prio though, so if we have prio, right, we either dive or we invade. If we don't have prio, if no prio, we look for ganks. Ganks are farming. Okay, then we prioritize first Herald because it gives us 300 gold, then it also gives us plate gold, and it also gives us a decent amount of XP. Dragon does give like some XP as well. Can be okay to take when you have nothing to do, but really we're prioritizing first Herald as an objective. Other than that, we don't really care about the objectives that much, especially on lower elos. Dragon can be pretty decent to take, especially if it's a game that's very heavily reliant on you ganking and playing for your team. So for example, if you're playing against champs like Nuno, you're playing against a pretty tanky comp, right? You're not really going to be able to solo carry that well unless you're at 20 kills, and even then it's going to be a bit questionable unless you have like really insane tempo. So a lot of the time in that scenario, it can be a lot easier for you to pressure the enemy, become pretty big, and then look for these objectives which the enemy jungler is trying to use to win, as you're cutting off their win condition, and you're also going to be pretty impactful yourself anyway. Then we have first clear, we clear. Second clear, we clear. Third clear, we clear. We get level 6, we get some new stuff unlocked because of level 6. So like invades are more unlocked and so on. On other champs, you could even start doing that on level 4 when you finish your first clear, or your second clear on level 5 or something. But Evelyn is not that good on those levels, so we don't really look to fight the enemy jungler that often on those levels, unless it's some really weak enemy jungler. Then, after we got level 6, our playstyle is going to stay largely the same, right? So if our ult is up, we are looking for a play, we're looking for ways to capitalize on that, we're looking for, I don't know, objective, kill, whatever, right? If our ult is down, we're looking to full clear. A very simple way to play, right? A very streamlined process. Can't say the same about something like a level 1 invading Karthus playstyle, which I had a really high win rate on last season and even this season. So in that case though, I would do something like enemies camps, look for a gank or something, look for some of my own camps, then maybe, I don't know, look for another gank, look for a full clear. Okay, now I have like maybe level 6 really soon, or maybe I already have it. Okay, look for level 6, maybe look for a dragon, maybe look for another invade somewhere for some reason, maybe look for another gank, you know? Like, it's really random. Though, I really shouldn't say random, as there isn't really anything random in it. It's predeterministic, based on your actions and the enemy's actions, but in terms of your own impact in the game, right? So your actions don't always produce the same result. Can't say the same about a full clear playstyle. Your actions do produce a largely similar result. So you're going to want to really decide what kind of playstyle you want to adopt, and you're gonna want to stick to that quite a lot. I will mention though that even champions that are not known to be so good at full clearing or whatever can do that playstyle. There isn't really so much of an issue with it until, let's say, like high master or something. Until like low master, you can play any champion in any playstyle really. You can play an early skirmishing Evelyn. You can play a full clearing Kiana or something. I did that for a bit. I mean, I don't win a lot on Kiana, but that's not because of the playstyle. I don't win a lot on Kiana on mid lane either, so it's not like it's because of that. Also that on stuff like Kha'Zix or Talon though, where on Talon you were supposed to level 3 gank, and that's what most people did, but I was just like full clearing and chilling because that's what I preferred to do. And it can still work and produce a positive result. Yeah, maybe you clear like 320 or 330 or something, but that's not really such a big issue. Preferably you would clear like 310, 320 at most, but even if you clear like 330, not such a big issue. Like you can still get scuttle, you can still get some plays off, whatever. You are gonna have to adapt a bit because obviously some champs like Cortus are going to clear like 250, some champs like Evelyn are going to clear like 305 or something, and that can be a problem sometimes. But generally, you're gonna be pretty fine. So my point today has really been that you have many ways to play in League of Legends, right? Whether you're a laner or a jungler, there are quite a few ways to play, and none of them are really going to be inherently wrong. People will say, I don't really want to say names, but people will say that a way of playing is wrong, a way of playing is dumb or something, but not really. You can really choose to play however you want. Not all of it is going to be the best. Some of it can be shown to be more, let's say, viable, as it's going to produce a better result, higher numbers or whatever. But then at the end of the day, the most important thing in League is for you to find something that you find fun, and that needs to be a combination of a champion and play pattern that you find enjoyable, and with that you will climb way higher than you would playing something like a forced play pattern or a forced champion choice. Obviously though, don't pick like the most vile champion you can possibly think of. I don't know, like Yasuo with like perma roaming playstyle. Like you're already gonna probably struggle playing Yasuo and then also perma roaming playstyle. Like stick to like champions that are at least like decent to play, and maybe like playstyles that are like at least decent on the champion, right? But other than that, you should be fine. Hope you learned something from this video. If you have, then like and subscribe, and I don't know, comment what you'd like to see next, and if not, then I don't know. But I'll see you next time, and bye bye. Peace.